As artists, a lot of times when we think about, what is the thing that really gets us out into the world? What is the thing that really gets people into us as artists? We think about our talent. We think about our skills. We think about the type of songs we make. We think about our brand. We think about just our overall presence as an artist. And all of those things are true. But I want to talk about something that precedes that I don't think we spend enough time talking about and where we should put our value as particular artists. And I believe that's in our mindset. Because without the right mindset, without a mindset that allows you to see impossibility, whereas that you look in challenges, if you will, that is the thing that can propel you to where you need to be the most. It's what you think in your mind, it's what you think in your heart, it's what you think in your will and your affections as a person. So I want to talk about that and how that having the right mindset can help you reach, your full potential as an artist and get yourself out there in a way that propels you to where you aim to go. So kind of touched on this a little bit, but I want to revisit briefly like what is a mindset? We hear this a lot about a mindset. Some people think it's the mind, people think it's behavior, some people think it has something to do with, how you act and what you do. But for the sake of this conversation, let's talk about what a mindset is. It's simply this: it's how you think, how you see the world, and how you interpret your own potential. It's the lens you utilize in order to make decisions as an artist, both creatively and professionally. So, again, I want to revisit mindset in the sense of it's the heart of a person, the will of a person, and the affections of a person. This is what makes up what you believe about life. This is what makes up what you believe about yourself, what you believe about your ability, and what you believe about what you can actually achieve as an artist. So the belief part, when we talk about mindset, it's about believing what's possible for you, you know, because if you don't understand and believe what's possible for you, you'll find yourself operating in this way. You find yourself doubting the impact and the quality of your work. You find yourself overthinking your next steps and how to move your career forward. You find yourself resisting help and collaboration with other artists, kind of taking on everything yourself and taking on the weight of your creative practice by yourself. And then you'll find yourself avoiding necessary discomfort to evolve, like increasing your knowledge and wisdom as you begin to lead your business. Your mindset can either serve you in a sense where skies is the limit, or it can become an unbreakable ceiling in your mind where you think you operate in limitations and things that are constantly holding you back from achieving where you need to go. So why does this matter? Why does having the right mindset matter first in reference to everything else, whether it's your talent, your creativity, your ideas, your systems, your strategy? Why does the mindset matters the most? Because this is what tends to happen. We tend to start our creative career with a lot of drive, a lot of passion, a lot of zeal for what we aim to do. And then eventually, over time, as we continue to build our creative practice, we naturally run into roadblocks. We release projects that necessarily don't get the love we feel it deserves. Uh, we run into financial challenges where we can't invest in our practice the way we want to. We may have opportunities that may slip out of our hands, or opportunities that are not have been awarded to us, where life tends to happen and you begin to experience these things in life. And it comes for your mind in the sense of, am I good enough? Do I have the ability? Do I have the capacity? Do I have what it takes to really thrive and support myself as an artist? Because without having a healthy understanding of how to handle that and having the right mindset to deal with that, you tend to gravitate towards disappointment and apathy because we're not thinking in the realm of possibility at this point. We're so consumed about what hasn't worked, what didn't work, what got in the way, and then we become apathetic in the process. It may not happen for me, not this time. We start thinking about all of the roadblocks and the hindrances that come into play outside of what's possible for us, what we actually can do, and then providing solutions for what we create as artists and how to further our creative practice. So, when we think about what a mindset affects, these are the areas where I think it affects us the most as artists. Number one, it affects our ability to handle rejection. Everyone is not going to like what you create. So, again, when we put out music and we put out products and we really try to drive our creative practice forward, we may have to deal with the chatter online, or we may have to deal with some feedback where people don't necessarily speak positively about what we do, or they speak with a level of um, not being interested in what we do. Whereas that now we get discouraged and say, what's going on with me? What's wrong with me? Like that feeling of rejection, like I'm putting my heart and my soul and my energy into what I'm doing, and it's not being received well. So the right mindset helps us have the ability to handle that rejection well. Another thing, it impacts how quickly we are able to internally recover after something appears to fail within our creative practice. Um, and I use that term failed loosely, and here's why. Because when we attempt things, we can either see it as a failure or we can see it as a lesson to be learned. So when we deal with that rejection, if it's not that that's the issue in and of itself, it's how we handle it and our ability to recover from that rejection. Are we sitting in it? Are we moping in it? Are we find ourselves kind of resting in it? Like, how are we handling that perceived rejection? Because that's going to determine how important um, we see the next steps and what's possible for us moving forward. You know, for example, you may have an album rollout strategy that didn't go well and didn't yield the results you were looking for. It didn't reach the amount of people you thought it was going to reach. It didn't get the right amount of sales you thought it was going to get. It didn't get the right amount of downloads you anticipated, you know, or you have an event and there's low ticket sales. Enough people in your mind that you thought was showing up didn't show up. So now instead of feeling like, hey, I thought I promoted and marketed this event enough to perform for, say, 200 people, it's only 50 people. And then now you're looking at yourself and saying, what did I do wrong? What went awry? What didn't work? And seeing it as if something's defective with you or something's wrong with you. And that internal dialogue and that rejection, you know, pretty much delays your ability to recover in a healthy way. And then what incorrect mindset does is it can expose how disciplined we truly are not in managing our business. So understanding with a mindset, it's not led by feelings, it's led by decisions. So it's not something you actively engage in, you know, when you feel like you have all the answers. So it's not like saying, for example, if I want to move forward with an idea or if I want to move forward with something in my creative practice, you don't look for everything to be perfect, to be right, and to be in a position where you feel comfortable enough to take action. You really become a student of the business and your creative practice, and you implement what you learn along the journey. And I think this is an important thing to understand because with implementation along the journey, you don't know everything. We're not omnipotent. We don't know the future. We can only operate in the present. So, me waiting for everything to be perfect, everything to be right, everything to be in perfect alignment is actually working against me because I can wait for all of these perceived things to be in alignment, the right money, the right situation, the right partnerships, and it can still not work out because I'm not omnipotent. I don't know the future. So it's best to basically operate on the revelation that you have, move forward in your creative practice, and your mindset tells you that that's safe, that's okay, and you'll continue to learn as you continue to grow. And then What a mindset can also impact is the risk you're willing or unwilling to take to invest in your career. So when we think about investments financially, you'll find yourself with the incorrect mindset, avoiding business opportunities out of fear of being unprepared. And then you'll find yourself not investing in things financially because you'll feel like this is not the right time, this is not the right moment, this is not the right situation. And in some cases, as you calculate the cost, that may be true. But the right mindset will evaluate both perspectives and not lean too heavily on one, which is that you're unable to do it. The right mindset will have you think about time. So, for example, if you are an artist, you're a seasoned artist, you've been working, you've been grinding, quote unquote, you won't feel like as if time has gotten away from me. Like, do I have enough time, or is my best years behind me? In reality, as long as you show up for the present, that's what matters the most. And that's what the correct mindset does. It allows you to focus on the present and not focus on perceived failures of the past. And then energetically, you'll start to think about the value in your creative practice in terms of what you want to do intentionally, and you will find yourself constantly chasing validation for vanity metrics like streams and likes and you know basically fan praise and adulation, where you want people to praise you for what you do and not necessarily look for how your creative practice serves a larger goal and helps people along the way. And then with the with an incorrect mindset in terms of not valuing it, you'll find yourself not being persistent over time. So, what does that look like? You have specific strategies, you have things in place that you strategically do over time that don't yield the results that you anticipate, and then you find yourself giving up too quickly. So, as an artist, you put out a record, for example, it has low streams, low engagement. You think that there's something wrong with you in the song, and you think that, hey, maybe I'm not prepared to do this. Maybe I'm not prepared to propel my career forward in this way. There's nothing wrong with adjusting the strategy, but to automatically default to believe that something's wrong with you, we're operating in the incorrect mindset. So, research found from Music Industry Research Association from a study found that 67% of independent artists reported mental blockages, basically working with a limited mindset, as the top reason they did not pursue newly learned strategies that could potentially advance their career, even if they had the tools in order to do so. So, as you can see, it doesn't matter the knowledge that you have, it doesn't matter the understanding that you have. What matters is what's going on in your mind, how you see it, how you perceive it. Because if you believe that you are limited in your capacity and limited in what's possible for you, then you'll automatically, in some ways, either consciously or subconsciously, begin to operate in those limitations. So now that we know what a mindset is and we know how it can operate in a limited way, let's talk about some strategies. How can we overcome that? How can we move from limited thinking to thinking in abundance and thinking about what's possible and not necessarily gravitating to what's getting in the way? So, I believe the first thing that we have to do is you have to audit the narrative in your head. You got to ask yourself, what do I believe about what's actually possible for me? Do I believe my best days are behind me? What am I afraid of when it comes to growing my creative practice? Addressing the internal dialogue. And what I mean by addressing the internal dialogue, I want to preface that with addressing that with God. You want to address that internal dialogue with God in solitude, in places like therapy, coaching, consulting, mentorship. You want to be able to get very clear about what you truly and actually believe about yourself as a human being. And this is very important because we sit with our thoughts all the time. We are the ones who hear what we have to say first. It's those thoughts that are operating in the background. It's those things that are moving in the recesses of our mind that's telling us about what's true and what is not. That needs to be audited. It doesn't need to be something that just passes through unchecked and then begin to impact how you behave. It needs to be something that you can either identify and not invest in. You just audit it. Is this actually true? No? Let me not press into that. Let me not think on that. Let me not meditate on that. Because auditing that narrative in your head is the first step to being able to develop the right mindset to be able to start thinking in abundance and not of limitations. And then the second thing you want to do is you want to tie your new mindset. You want to tie it to your desired future. You want to focus on the future and what's possible. You want to think in solutions and not limitations. And here's a few examples of what I mean. For example, you want to ask questions like, what do I have versus what do I lack? What can grow with time instead of what's not working now? Who can I build with instead of why don't I have support? What does success mean for me now versus why am I not getting ahead? Tying your mindset to your future increases your belief. It sustains your energy to produce, and it sharpens your focus on what matters most and not what's holding you down. I think that's very important because the circumstances here doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what's going on in the situation. What matters most is how you question the situation. You want to question with a solution based approach and not a limitation based approach. Think about what's possible and not what's limiting again. And then this has to be reinforced. Um, this is not something that I feel is sustainable in and of itself on our own. I believe we have to surround ourselves with those who are future visionists. And this is what I mean. You want to collaborate with other artists and industry professionals who value you as a human being first. They value your time and they value what you have to offer. They think in abundance and they have no issue sharing resources. They have a history and a track record of being trustworthy and honorable, and they speak to your future and what's possible for your growth. You have no idea how much of a negative impact this can have on you if you're surrounded by people and you're in the presence of people who are speaking negatively all the time, who are speaking in limitations, who are speaking about what you can't do and not in reference of what you can do. When you spend time in spaces and places where the constant chatter, the constant dialogue, the constant talk is about what's getting in the way, what's limiting, and what you can't do, subconsciously, you'll begin to operate in that narrative. Um, I believe I heard some I forgot where I heard this from, but someone said, and I'm paraphrasing, if you hang around five broke people, you'll be the sixth one. Basically, meaning you become like who you spend the most time with. So if you're focusing on the future, if you're focusing on growing, if you're focusing on evolving, you have to ask yourself, is this energy around me, are these people around me, is my community around me propelling me to the future, or are they constantly rehashing the past, rehashing what's not working, and rehashing what's getting in the way? If that's the case, you might want to reconsider how you operate moving forward when it comes to your inner circle and how you proceed moving forward. And then in your creative practice, there's ways to protect that and to protect that energy, right? When you want to position yourself around like minded people. So if you have people who are operating in that same mindset, which is a future focused mindset, have co-working days with these people. Like have strategic meetups, you know, exchange ideas, have something structured and repetitive where you can have this space to build and grow with one another, because that's important. You know, you don't want to just know who these individuals are. You want to create space. You want to be intentional about the space that you have with these people so you can have this constant dialogue, this future focus going over and over again. And then you want to be able to use feedback as a strategy, not something that gets embedded in your identity. So you want to shift from having conversations like this. They didn't like my single. Instead of saying, what does this tell me about the market I want to reach? Or no one came to my show. Instead of saying, how can I redesign the experience to better serve my ideal audience? This way of reframing what we're experiencing allows us to think in the realm of what's possible rather than personal judgment and about what perceivably failed. Again, it's the same thing. It's just how we language it. Language matters. If we language it in a way where we can take our experience and we can turn it into a lesson, it becomes something that we can improve on over time. Whereas that we take something and we see it as a failure, and then it becomes a part of our personality, it becomes a part of our thought process, and then it becomes something that we believe, which further limits us in the future. And then to make it all make sense when it comes to, developing the right mindset, you want to prioritize your mental health, your wellness, and your emotional maintenance. So this includes, it's not limited to, but this is how I would structure it in an advisory way. Sorry. You want to connect with God first because you want to be led by Him and you want to be submitted to His ways. The reason why I say being connected with God first, because I believe that everything about us as human beings is connected to Him. Who we are, our identity, how we show up in the world, what we believe about ourselves is all connected to God. And if we can spend time to connect with Him, spend time to be one with Him, spend time to learn more about ourselves with Him, I believe that creates the best foundation to be able to develop the right mindset for what you need for your creative practice. And then after connecting with God, you want to set aside time to reflect, re-energize, and reconnect to self because God will let us know about who we are. And once we know more about who we are, we need time to process that. We have to reflect on that. We have to become re-energized on that new notion and that identity aspect of who we are so we can take that with us into our creative practice. And then you don't want to be afraid to pause and regroup because we have to know the difference between realignment and self-sabotage. So realignment, you basically are making adjustments to your mindset to better connect with your long-term vision in comparison to self-sabotage, which is you unconsciously or sometimes consciously operate in a way that limits your own success and blocks what's possible for you. So, and I take this in a way where you can evaluate this spiritually, where you know you're in realignment, where you're motivated by clarity, growth, and purpose, instead of when you're motivated by fear, anxiety, and avoidance, and being led by unprocessed triggers. If you start to make decisions when you're scared, when you're worried, when you're led by fear, chances are that could be in the realm of self-sabotage. But in realignment, if you experience those feelings of fear, anxiety, but when you really take time to process and really sit in it, you're really concerned about purpose. You really want to get clear and you really want to grow as an individual. That may cause for realignment. So we want to know the difference between those two things when we're pausing and regrouping because we want to realign, but we don't want to self-sabotage. And there's been a study from the American Psychiatric Association that found that creatives who integrate regular mental wellness check-ins produce 23% more creative output than those who don't. So even when you have the right mindset and you prioritize your mental wellness, you become more productive. Your productivity increases, and it increases intentionally. So it has a direct impact on your ability to show up for what you produce and the ability to show up for yourself as an artist. So remember, our mindset is the filtration system for our mind, which is our heart, our will, and our affections as a person. It impacts what we see, how we interpret life, and what we believe about what's possible and what's not. So, again, maybe it's not the music, maybe it's not the strategy, maybe it's not the songs itself, maybe it's not your creative approach. Maybe it has a lot to do with how you see it, your mind, your mindset, what you believe about what's possible for you, and what you believe about what's true and not what's limited. So I want you to spend some time really reconnecting to yourself, really getting conscious about what you actually believe, and really start to work on improving your mindset so you can be able to think and be in possibility and not in limitations and not in things that will hold you back. You want to be in things that tie you to your future and tie you to where you want to go as a creative. So again, if this episode helped you, please share it with someone else. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you back here next week. Again, I'm Neak. Be blessed. Take care.